I went to GVE London, which has a huge stock of supercars. So obviously they were very interested in asking me a lot about my 7 supercars.
I crashed a 5-day-old Ferrari 458 into News International building. It was in the Sun and the Star, and the reporters were over within half an hour.
But we also discussed various shadow bans I've had over the years. They also get me to dish the dirt on the worst guests I've ever had.
He was our first hugely controversial guest, and we blew up, millions of views, instant ban.
And we discuss how people in the world have dramatically changed since that event 4 years ago.
You're a bit of a car guy, aren't you?
Well, I like them. I'm not very good at driving them, but I like them.
So what kind of cars do you have in your collection?
A 1987 Ferrari Testarossa.
Wow. What colour?
The colour.
The colour.
The only colour.
Rossa Corsa.
Of course.
Is that what interior?
Crema leather, is it? Yeah, crema interior.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's the only
There's different
combo of
variants,
every...
right?
Yeah, I was about to say, you got the single mirror one.
No, we don't have the... Is that called the mono?
That was the original Tester.
Yeah. So
Before they
it's got the two. It's got 2 mirrors. Isn't
Okay.
the one mirror one worth more?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I messed that one up. I've got the 2 mirrors. Yeah.
How long have you owned it for?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
Is it a garage queen, or do you use it?
We use it.
Yeah.
Use it and abuse it.
Oh,
well,
nice.
it's only got what, 15, 16,000 miles.
Oh my God,
It's not.
that's
It's
bloody
not
good.
high. It's It was in. Yeah, I was told we bought it well because I share the fleet we have. I think we have 7.
Okay. You and your business partner?
Yeah, we sort of share them around because it's great, isn't it? Because when you're annoyed with it, you can give it to your business partner, and then when you miss it, you can get it back.
Get it back.
Yeah.
Perfect. So what other cars?
1989 911 turbo with the whale tail.
Very nice.
I remember watching Bad Boys and that.
964.
I'm gonna have one of them. Yep.
What colour is that?
That is some Guards red.
Oh, nice.
With the is it Fuchs wheels? Fouche.
Very nice.
Yeah, the Fouche wheels.
I don't know if you've just seen. So yours is the turbo, did you say? Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, it's the 930. Ah, okay. So the one from Bad Boys was the 964, but one of those has just come onto the market for 300 grand.
Wow.
300 grand. Which is good
Will
news,
you take 300 from mine?
We can have a chat about it on this podcast.
That was a very diplomatic no. Yeah. Yeah, and then the Aventador.
Nice.
Got the
700?
in grey.
Okay.
It's the convertible. I know it's got a different name, hasn't it? Convertible one. Well, when you
Roadster,
say
right?
yeah, Roadster. I mean, when you say convertible, it takes about 20 minutes to get the roof off.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah,
How do you find that experience?
yeah, it's an experience. I thought it was a better choice to buy that car because apparently, did they make less? Did they make less than the?
There were fewer Roadsters made than the Coupes, and they're holding their value
Yeah.
there as well. But I just know people find it a massive faff having to take the roof on and off.
Yeah, I think my business partner about 6 times has had to try and show me how to actually fit it in the front because it's really awkward to fit it into the front. And then I gave it back to him one time and I'd left him in the garage and he's like, "Where's the roof?"
Do you know
As
what?
it started to rain.
I think every Roadster we've sold, every customer who's bought it has done it with the same intention. They'll just leave it off. They'll
I'm not the
off.
only one. Yeah, because yeah.
You want the space in the front of your car, and you also want to be able to have the roof off. So
Yeah. Yeah, and then I just bought actually a DBS.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I had a Panamera Superleggera. I had the Panamera Turbo S.
Yeah.
But I had that for 5 years. I couldn't get rid of it because I couldn't find anything better. But I got a good deal on it. I paid 136, I think, for one that was I think 300 new.
Oh, lovely.
So I think I've seen this car pop up online. It's the lime green one.
It was
originally, right?
lime green. Yeah, and I wrapped it
Yeah.
in I don't know what the blue is they call, but it's quite similar to that mid-blue Aventador you've got downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you took that car in for a wrap, did you ever look at the number plate to see where the car came from?
No, I'm not very thorough like things like that. I once bought a GTR R35 and brought it back because my business partner normally takes care of helping us buy because he knows cars better than me and he's better at negotiating. And I was really proud I'd got basically the cheapest R35. I was super proud of myself. And he's like, but mate, it's Japanese. And
it's Japanese.
It was an import. I didn't even know it was an import. I just bought it.
That's not always a bad thing. But
Well, that was a bad thing. So yeah, I didn't look at the...
My point being, if you still got the original plates when you bought that car, have a look at the bottom of it and you will find GVE London written there.
Ah, so did we buy it off you?
In a roundabout way, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. Ah.
That was the ring up, right?
No, to say that, yeah.
So I'll have to hook you up as a sponsor for the show then, because I've already bought it. I'm not very good at this because when I every time I tend to go to a car super dealer, I end up spending money. So
really?
I've already bought my car off you by the look of it, so I'm safe.
Oh, there's another one today. Those you haven't seen yet, but you're in discussions about buying a Urus. You just don't know it yet, but it's going to happen.
An Audi RS Q8 plus 200 grand tax, you mean? Yeah.
Well, 100 if you go for the old shape. So.
You said 215, 220 in the car. I was in the back. I heard it. Because you said 180 on my show, and then you said 215 in the car.
180 is for a high mileage one.
There you go.
Looking up,
you see,
we're going to get you
my
a
RS Q8 was 5,000 miles, so you.
Okay.
Yeah, you schooled me there on my own show.
It is a good car though, the RSQ.
Yeah.
I'm pleasantly surprised with the drive. The air suspension's amazing in it. You know, it handles really well. To be honest with you, I don't know. I think maybe an RSQ for the same money, I'd probably do an RSQ8 plus like an Aventador.
Really? You can't.
Aventador S.
I think it's hard to compare your Urus to the RSQ8 though, because you've got bigger wheels, lower suspension.
Yeah.
But yeah, for real supercar enthusiasts, and I'm sure you will change your mind soon. Having the Lamborghini badge on it is not just the badge alone, it comes with so much more.
Yeah, it does, but you don't need it in your 4x4 where you take your kids to school, do you? And how old are you, George?
31.
Right, see, I'm 44, so not meaning to sound old, but I think I might have wanted the Lamborghini 4x4 when I was 31, but it's to take the kids to school and back, and so we had a conversation about the parts, didn't we, on my show?
Yeah.
How the premiums whacked up.
Yeah.
And
So what else do you have in your garage?
an aerial atom.
Oh wow,
Nice.
Do you track it?
No, I have the same view as you. I would track someone else's car and ruin theirs. Why would I ruin mine?
But that is my view,
Yeah.
with the exception of cars made for the track.
Yeah.
So surely an aerial
I have
atom is
driven an aerial atom around a track.
Yeah.
Just not ours.
Really.
Yeah.
So where do you drive it?
Just to work.
No way.
Yeah.
That must be such an experience.
It is, even just driving it at 50 to work
Yeah.
is an amazing experience. Like, you don't need coffee when you get up in the morning, just get in that and go.
Bloody
It's
Even on a normal winter British
It's
day.
actually, it's a better experience when it's cold in terms of how it feels.
Yeah.
Not obviously driving it because it's a bit slippery, but yeah, it's a great experience. You only need to do 50, 60 in that car.
Wow.
Because the intake is right by your left ear, and so the turbo sucks in and screams.
You started off saying that you like cars, but you aren't a very good driver.
Yeah, I'm not technical about cars, as you can see. I have to check with the boss over there, and I'm not a trained in any way driver. When I was a kid, I loved the Ferrari Testarossa. I loved watching Magnum.
Yeah.
I loved the film. In the films, I'd remember the cars, not the people. So I always said to myself, if I ever made it one day, I'd buy nice cars and I'd learn to fly a helicopter because I loved Airwolf. And they were the things I said to myself that I would do that I managed to do.
Oh, wow. So you can fly a helicopter now, too?
I used to be able to fly a helicopter. I didn't keep it up because it's the biggest faff in the world.
Why?
Well, the airfield's about 25 minutes away if there's no traffic. And then you get there and you've got to sit down with your instructor and fill in the book and plan the route and do all the safety checks. So you're probably nearly an hour before you've actually taken off. So I wasn't so good at all the, the navigating in all the right airspace either.
Is that something that you'd aspire to have one day for yourself, a helicopter? I've got a friend that's saying that he can't wait until he buys a big enough house so that he has a helicopter landing pad there. I
think I wanted that until I got it.
Really?
As in until I learned. I never bought a helicopter, but I got my... by the way, going up, pulling up and lifting up in a helicopter the first time you go solo when your instructor gets out is one of the most amazing feelings in the world.
Wow.
Because you learn to fly in a tiny little Robinson 22 that's like this, and one person coming out dramatically reduces the weight and you just pick up slightly and just go up. And that, I can remember that feeling. And to me, I was done. I didn't really need to then get the bigger helicopter and buy one. To me, that was ego. If I could have stopped then, I'd have stopped then. I got my test. I did, I think, 100 hours, but it was pure hobby. It's weather, obviously, is on a helicopter if the weather's not right. So you planned your journey. So, maybe I'd have thought, it'd be nice to come and see guys like you and go and buy a car and fly in a helicopter, but then the weather's crap and then you can't go. So I have a driver and I just much prefer being driven in a car than flying. But it was an achievement of a goal. It was a hobby. I did it. I feel good that I did it and then retired.
We've had some customers come and visit us in the helicopters, and then they've gone back into the helicopter, gone back to the Isle of Wight or something. But that's all good and well until the weather was like what it was today. And then what the hell do you do then? You just sit around waiting.
You're grounded.
But what if you're mid-flight on the way to London, the weather, it was terrible.
You have to immediately land.
Really? Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, if you don't want to die.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy local to us. There was a guy local to us who owned a big hotel in a village just outside of where we live. And that they flew in bad weather and he died.
Oh my God.
It went down. Yeah.
But you just hear so many, maybe it's just because they're quite high profile, but you hear of a few helicopters going wrong and then,
Yeah, it was, I've crashed most of my cars, so it was always, I think I did the right thing in retiring because it was probably on. Thing is, I got away with it in the cars.
Yeah.
I crashed a 5-day-old Ferrari 458 into News International building, which is Sky, Rupert Murdoch, the Mirror.
On purpose, I'm guessing.
No, not on purpose.
How many
You're thinking PR, yeah.
Well, how many followers did you get from that?
That was that pre-social media? I think it was. Yeah, it was in the newspapers. It was in the Sun and the Star, and the reporters were over within half an hour.
Wow.
That was 100. Yeah, page 3. 105 grand repair bill that was on the car.
Oh my God!
You didn't go through insurance. You did.
Yeah.
105 grand.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm guessing that's still affecting you till now.
Brake fade. The brakes were cold.
Oh, really?
Well, the ceramics on those 458s are notoriously bad, aren't they?
Yeah.
Depends on how fast you're driving them, to be honest with you.
I was about to say they're not so great if you're trying to turn 90 degrees at 100 miles an hour on a fresh car.
I wasn't blaming the car at the point it was raised over there.
Okay, so now we've got to know about your cars. What did you do to be able to afford these cars? So tell us a little bit about your history, your business that you started, and what you're doing currently.
So, in 2006, I met my business partner, and he was already working for a rather creative property sourcer.
Okay.
And
what's a property sourcer then, for people that don't know?
Yeah, someone who might sell you an off-the-plan or a new build property for investment purposes. So not an estate agent, because it was for investment. And he was a larger-than-life, colourful character. And Mark had given me some books to read. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was one of them. And I interviewed Robert Kiyosaki recently, and Mark said to this guy, we should give this guy a chance because, you know, he's hungry. He's got something about him. I didn't have any knowledge at that point. Anyway, so I blagged this job. I was prepared to work for free because I was doing art as my full-time job. But I thought, well, I can paint at 2 a.m. I'll do this 9 to 5 thing.
You used to be an artist?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I never painted again after that. I think...
That's a tough
I
job,
think
right?
it was Feb or March of that year, Mark and I bought our first buy-to-let investment together. Now, Mark already had about a dozen, so he was already a bit further ahead, and he sort of took me under his wing, and he was like, you know, look, we'll do it this way, and don't buy these new things. They're overpriced. Buy the older existing stuff. So we worked for him for a year and sold a lot of property for him and made him some money, and then we decided to set up on our own because we didn't want to sell overseas stuff and new build stuff because we didn't think it was the best investment. We thought that the local stuff down the road that didn't look nice, but it was, I mean, they were 70 grand back then. I think we bought a house for 35 grand
Wow.
in a bit of a, but
Where?
was that Corby or was that, yeah, Corby.
Corby's near, like...
Our cheapest property ever bought, was it 35 grand, 40 grand?
I think it probably had a 4 in front of it.
Yeah. Yeah, so say 40 something. Yeah.
What made you want to approach Mark that time at the job? Were you always interested in property, or you knew Mark?
No, I went to a networking event because my gallery owner, who was hanging up my paintings, a bit like you've got here, he said, you should get into property. And I'd been dismissing it forever, but my dad had a nervous breakdown in his pub in front of all of his customers. He got sectioned, he got beaten up by the police. And I watched it all happen, and I sort of froze and felt quite a lot of shame because my dad had put me through school and university. He'd paid for my first house and first car and always supported me financially. He wanted me to be an entrepreneur, and I was not doing a very good job. So about a week or so after that, I went to see Mike in the gallery to see if he'd sold any of my work. And as usual, he hadn't. But he said, you should really think about this property thing. And I was like, where is it? I'm in. And I went. And one thing he said to me was, don't just leave when you've finished. Make sure you go and speak to everyone because it's a networking event. Because you'd be surprised how many people go to networking events and don't speak. Or they give out a card and don't follow up. So I did what he said, and I went around everyone, and Mark was the last person I met at the bar. And we swapped cards and had a bit of a chat. And in Peterborough, you don't really get many entrepreneurial people. So maybe I was blagging it well to Mark that I looked like I knew what I was doing because I didn't. But I was definitely keen and excited and interested in property and business. And I guess Mark probably didn't meet that many property people locally. So we swapped cards, and I emailed him up the next day, and he said, come into the office. And not quite on the spot, but a few weeks later, they gave me a job. Yeah. And we bought approaching 20 properties that year together. We bought certainly...
After leaving...
No, while we're on the job.
there.
Yeah, well, we had no contract with him, so we weren't breaching any contract. We'd actually pitched it to him. We sat him down and said, we think this property works better. We'd be happy to sell this. Let's build a business around it. And I remember he just dismissed us out of sight. Didn't even give it the time of day.
Yeah.
And I remember being a bit pissed off about that. Yeah, so...
You were getting 5%.
Yeah. That was another problem. Yeah.
5% of...
Fuck all. Yeah. Well,
So that was the
if
commission.
we were going to set up this business with him, then Terry was going to get 80% and Mark was going to get 15% and I was going to get 5%.
Got it.
Even though I'm the guy that's pitching him the bloody... Because I was normally the guy that would do the pitching part. You know, I would do the public speaking. I'd speak at the events and things. So yeah, that didn't really seem fair. So, but it wasn't soon after that we left. And then we just started buying loads. So we have 340 rental units now in our portfolio.
Wow.
We manage 1,300-ish in our management company, and that all started from 2006.
And where did you find all the funding to buy these properties?
Well, when we started, Mark put the money in and cut me in on the upside. So he wasn't taking any risk because I didn't have any of his money, but he gave me 50% of the upside. So he didn't take any risk. And I think Mark figured out quite quick that I was quite quick at learning things. So, you know, I'll do the selling, and I've read a few books and listened to a few audios, and I started doing the selling even though I was a bit green, and I'll do the marketing, and I'd read a few marketing books, and I'll do the public speaking. And I'm pretty good at, you know, you were asking me about the books and writing the books. I mean, I wrote my recent book. I wrote all the words in 24 days. So the research and the editing's longer, but the actual, once I sit down and go, I'll go fast in a straight line. So,
and that's your most recent book?
Yeah, it's Money Matrix. It's not out yet.
Okay. And what's it going to be about?
It's about the money system, how it works, and then playing it at its own game so that you can make, manage and multiply money.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is for the normal guy that works a 9 to 5 and isn't so savvy about what money is as such. Is that what you're saying? It's kind of like beating the system at its own game kind of thing.
Yeah, I think most people don't know how the money system works. Yeah. They don't know the basic fundamentals of it. Yeah.
And so then it's just interesting because we've never had an author on this podcast, but just interesting, like, how does somebody sit down and write a book from scratch on such a, like, I don't know, it's a complex subject, right? Is this all based on your personal experiences, or is this something that you're having to research the heck out of and then putting all your research into one book?
So that book there, Money, my original manuscript was 250,000 words, so 250,000 words. And I think I wrote those in about 6 months. It took me to write the 250,000 words. That was a little bit more of a complicated research project than my Money Matrix book, because Money Matrix, I've already written money and I've got a lot more money knowledge, and it was a slightly more simple concept. So I only ever write things I have experience about. That's the fun for me, fundamentally, as an author.
Yeah.
I'm not a researcher. I'm a doer.
Yeah.
And that's where I start. And then the technical parts, or the historical parts, or the quotes and the references, that's what I do the research on. But fundamentally, what I'm writing about, I know about, and I do. So, you know, we've been using bank finance to build our, property portfolio of hundreds of units. So I know how the banking system works. When inflation was high, we're seeing the actual value of our mortgage go down dramatically. If you believe that inflation was over 10% from 2020, which I do, and if you believe that 2021 and 2022 were similar, then in 3 years, that's 30% inflation. So with our mortgages, which are tens of millions of pounds, that is £10 million or £15 million wiped off the value of our mortgage or the relative value of the mortgage with inflation. So I'd figured out all these things because I was doing it. So that's how I start. What do I do and what do I know? And what am I passionate about writing about? And what do I think people want? Now, fundamentally, I believe not enough people know about money. It's not taught in school, and it should be. Most people don't know the basics of investing and budgeting and just the simple things. So I believe it's something that everyone should know about. I will initially ask my researcher to pull together all the content I've done on social media in the last 2 or 3 years. He'll pull all that together in a document. I will order it, i.e. I think that's chapter 1 and I think that's chapter 50. And then I just start writing. 6 a.m, load it up on coffee, just go. And I would probably say every 3 minutes I get the urge to open the fridge or do something completely random because I don't want to write this book. But I just push through all those urges. You know, if you look at people, they're always on their phone and they're always checking their phone and their phone is always buzzing. So we're all distracted all the time. I think to write a book, you just need to push through those urges.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'll never let myself finish unless I've finished a paragraph or a page. Because the worst thing to do is to think, I'll take a break now halfway through a page. Because Because then when you sit back down, you're like, where was I? You have to reread. We have to reread all the, not just the page, but the chapter, and think where you were. And it takes you ages to. So, you know, resist the urge to have a break.
Yeah.
And then only have a break when the right time is to have the break, whether it's end of page, end of paragraph, or end of chapter. And just write imperfectly, because editing makes it perfect. So what a lot of people do is they're sort of writing, but they're editing at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the wrong way to do it. No. Otherwise, you never get the words out. You write, stream of consciousness, like you're talking, you let it out, you edit it later. And that's how I write books.
I find that with social media actually as well, or just any kind of media that we're doing down here. My direction to the media team is just get something out there. So just come up with something, however good it is. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just get it average, and then at least we've got some sort of proof of concept, and then we'll just keep on with each iteration, make it better. But it's quite interesting. The money book, I actually bought that before I met you or even spoke to you, and I didn't even know this person that I'm looking at on TikTok is the same person that wrote that book. And I would have bought that book because of all the positive reviews. I only buy books that have like top 5-star reviews on Amazon. So based on that, you must have sold a lot of those books, right?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. I know we've sold more. I know we've sold in excess of 1 million of books.
Wow.
But obviously I've written more than one.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you exactly how many copies that's written, but that and Life Leverage are my 2 most successful books.
Top books.
Yeah.
I mean, I think some of our customers could probably do with reading some of the money books.
It's interesting because the way you describe about having to write books and engage in actually putting your thoughts down into writing sounds like quite a lengthy process, and you seem like you're a very busy person in your day-to-day business. What motivates you to actually want to write a book? I mean, there's many entrepreneurs out there who probably have a lot of wisdom to give out there, but they probably don't have that edge or that spark to sit down for months, like you're saying, and write a book. But what motivates you to want to do that?
Well, I guess in a way, the fact that I came here and you already had my book, you know, and you said that, you know, people would say to me that I'd changed their life. That's definitely one reason. But personally, like Mark and I ran around Peterborough together, basically holding hands for about 2 years, buying properties together and doing everything together. And we sort of quickly worked out that's not sustainable for the long term. He's better than me at it because he's been doing it longer. All right, he's taught me up, I can do it. But we've quickly figured out the smart play would be for one of us to carry on buying and doing the property side, and one of us do another side, whether it was the public speaking or the marketing or the authoring. And so that was me. That became me, because Mark was technically better at the property side, but also I'm probably a little bit more naturally extroverted, if you like, compared to him. So that was probably one of the best business decisions we made, because we have a significant property portfolio, but we also have the UK's largest property training business. And we wouldn't have had that if we hadn't, those 2 years in, gone, we're both doing the same thing here. I remember a mentor of mine saying, if you both do the same thing, one of you isn't needed. So we sort of went like that and parted. Now, look, Mark's written a couple of books, and obviously I know how to buy property, but and so I learned to love that. I learned to love property because property got me out of the 9 to 5. So I did fall in love with it. But then I learned to love writing and speaking and building the training business, because that's from a cash flow and a sales and a raising money and a liquidity point of view, it's very good. In fact, that training business has funded, you know, many of our properties that we own.
Wow.
And it's a good counter business model.
So was it the books that came first and then the training?
The first book was called Property Investing Secrets in 2008. That came first. So I think Mark and I had done about 50 deals. We'd kept some, we'd sold some. But I think I remember thinking, 50, you know, that's pretty good. Like, I reckon we could teach people. That was like a number for me, where it's like 49, I can't really teach anyone. 51, I'm an expert now. That was the threshold. So yeah, just I sat Mark down and I'm like, right, tell me about this and this and this. And I just like literally sat him down, because he finds it hard as well to write and get information out. So I pinned him in a corner and I got all the information out of him, and I added some mindset and stories and case studies in and some research in. And that was our first book, 2008. And then once that book went out, because we got that to #1 in the business section, which is good for a property book, because normally you don't get property books in the business section. Actually, money was #1 in all books, so that was like, that trumped it.
In all
books. Yeah.
Wow.
But I remember people coming up to me saying, you guys need to teach us how to buy property and do what you do. And before I'd written the book, that didn't really happen. Might have happened a few, a handful of times. But the book got us out where people are like, right, we need to learn how to do this. So even though the books make money in and of themselves, with the numbers I gave you, that pales into insignificance to the amount of money the books make when people say, teach me what to do, and then they come to our training business. So they're way more lucrative from that point of view.
And the training business has thousands and thousands of people that have attended, right?
Yeah, Mark said he thought 15 to 20,000 students last year. I'm going to argue, I'd say I reckon that's more. But it's a
20,000
is a chunk of people. Yeah, I mean, we regularly do over 20 million in sales.
Wow.
In that training business.
Wow. And this is teaching people, just teaching people how to buy and sell properties, right?
Yeah.
How did the training business come about? What was your thought process behind that?
First off, write the book. Then when enough people ask about how do you do this, let's put on a seminar.
That's so cool.
So I remember we'd gone to it was either Tony Robbins or Chris Howard first. I can't remember which way around, but basically we'd gone. Most people I know that are entrepreneurs read entrepreneurial books and follow entrepreneurs who teach. So most people I know have gone to a Tony Robbins seminar or a marketing seminar.
And would you recommend a Tony Robbins seminar?
Depends. I mean, there's if you don't like hugging and fiving and clapping and kissing and shouting and screaming,
doing every day. Anyway. And crying.
I personally didn't like the jumping up and down and the whoop whoop rah rah. It's very American, but then that's just probably me and my grumpy Englishness. If you want to go and open your mind to what's possible in yourself and how you see yourself, absolutely, I would recommend.
Did you walk on the coal and stuff like that?
No, I buggered off early before the fire walk.
Really?
Yeah. I like the information. I don't like all the the frills around the edge.
Wow.
So the idea behind the concept behind the whole training course is pretty amazing when you think about it, because you're essentially training a whole load of the general public about how to flip money in properties, or how to flip properties to make money, right? But are they doing that for themselves, or are they doing that as a joint venture for your company?
Okay, so overall, I love going to seminars. We launched our own seminar. We teach people how to buy property for themselves. We don't teach people how to give us money to buy properties with us, because I think that could be a potential conflict of interest. We have raised finance, we have done joint ventures, we've done no money down deals and other people's money. But generally, I think you either do a joint venture and you finance together, or you teach. You don't do both, because otherwise my teaching might be a bit loose just to get your money. So some people in our industry do that, and we think there's a conflict.
Didn't Grant Cardone do something similar or something like that recently? Anyway?
Well, Grant Cardone has a training business, and he has a property business. And really what his property business is you pooling money into essentially a fund that buys the property. We don't do that.
Okay.
I mean, the regulation around that is
it must be
hot.
Yeah.
And we actually looked into setting up a fund, and Mark was like, this is going to take forever and cost way too much money. No point. So I don't want to give you the fish. I want to teach you to fish. That's the way we've always looked at at the property education space, and it is safer because we're never going to be in any hot waters for pooled investments or anything like that. But really, I want to teach you how to do it because I think that that's more empowering. So we did our first property training seminar in 2008 off the back of the book, and I remember Mark saying to me, "Bloody hell, we got 50 people in a room." He was like, "Wow." And I remember 20 of them, bought a $2,000 masterclass off of us. And Mark was like, "Bloody hell, this is a good business."
How did you go about marketing it?
Google ads back then.
Oh, really?
I think it was pre-Facebook. Yeah, it was pre-Facebook, so it was Google ads. And we built up a little bit of an online database. Yeah. I'd learned how to set landing pages up and run Google ads. So we built up a bit of a database. And I ran a few Google ads when I used to do it myself. We had... I remember because we had 50 people in the seminar room. I remember because the guys at the front nicked the books and off in the break. And I remember thinking, Jesus, this is maybe not going to go so well. And then I remember at the end, we just got mobbed. And everyone went, more.
Wow.
So then after that, we did our first ever retreat course. So we did a retreat at sort of like where was it? Wokefield Park, wasn't it? Reading. We hired like a nice sort of stately looking place. And and that was the start of our training business. Now, here's the thing, selling 20 people into a $2,000 course, which made us 40 grand, we managed to keep most of that. Whereas to make 40 grand net in drips and drabs rental income, I'm not saying it's not good, it's good, but it's going to take a lot longer. So we'd put a lot of time into building property and got the trickle of passive and recurring income. But, it was slow at first. It takes time to build. But on one day, we pocketed like 40 grand, which, 20 grand each. We were in our mid-20s at the time. We're like, bloody hell, this is a scalable model. And we did £288,000 in an event last weekend.
Oh, wow.
But my trainers run that now. But it's essentially, it's that event, but 17 years later, and that one did 288,000. We did one event that did £1 million.
Oh my God.
In a single event?
In a single event, yeah.
Wow. So that's £1 million in ticket sales?
£1 million in sales, yeah.
So how does the pricing structure work? I heard you earlier mention there's a £2,000 masterclass, so you've got different brackets of...
Yeah, well, the way I see it is you take steps forward in anything you learn. So if I said, "Oh, guys, if you want to learn anything from me, I'm not telling you anything else. Now you have to pay me 10 grand for my mentoring," you're not going to bother. But if you can get some Facebook posts and TikToks and get a bit of tips off me, and then you can go and buy my book and read that for a tenner, you might be like, "Oh, this guy seems like he knows what he's talking about." So the way we've designed our business is we just take you baby steps and we give you loads of free stuff, and then we ask you for a £10 book. Then we'll come and meet us for a day, pay £100, and then spend 3 days with us on the deep dive how-to course for £2,000. And then if you want mentoring beyond that, then we can talk, and that's a bigger fee. I think it's a much better way of doing it because you can go through stages and improve along the way, as opposed to just putting a wall up saying, "Oh, you can't come near me unless you put 10 grand down."
Up,
yeah.
So then that's your seminar business. And then that led to you doing the Disruptors podcast, I take it. Was it initially more to do with interviewing people in the property game?
A business, really. So I think it was about 2015, 2016. We made the plan to remove ourselves from operations in the business. We thought maybe we one day might sell. We also thought we can't grow this brand if Rob and Mark are the face of the brand, because we were. I mean, every email would be Rob and Mark at Progressive. Whilst that builds a personal brand, and that's good, because actually we had a personal brand before personal brands were a thing. Problem with that is I did 250, 300 speaking training days in 2015/16 in a year period, and it burned me out big time. I love speaking, so I was a bit of my own worst enemy. I didn't want to hand over the baby to anyone else because everyone wanted to come and see me and Mark, and we were a double act on a show, and 3 days, Rob does one session, Mark does another, and it's Rob and Mark. But I knew the business couldn't grow anymore because I couldn't do any more training days because I was burned out. And, both Mark and I were nearing the age where we might have a family and things like that. So I trained up some people. I took some of my students and I trained them up, and I invested time and money into them. And now they run all the trainings for us. Wow. So we no longer have to do the operational stuff. So we were able to then pull away and say, if you want to learn no money down investing, go to Kevin McDonnell. If you want to learn service accommodation, go to Kevin Paneskis. So then all of a sudden, I don't really have as much to do because I'm not the property guy anymore. And to be honest, by that stage, I was more interested in general business than property. I love property, but general business is what I'm more interested in. So I wrote my first non-property book called Life Leverage, and launched the Disruptors podcast. Back then it was called Disruptive Entrepreneur because I told you before, didn't I? That's really, I like talking to entrepreneurs. And so really Disruptors and Life Leverage was the official launch of me exiting the property brand.
Got it.
So Progressive Property could grow without us, and then I've got this other thing I can do.
And you've had some crazy guests over that.
Yeah, GVE, I mean, they were mad.
But no, like give us some names. Give us some, like, who are your most high profile people that you've had?
Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, Katie Hopkins, Floyd Mayweather twice.
Floyd Mayweather twice.
That
guy, I don't know if you've ever read his book, but Alistair Campbell's Winner's Book. Have you read that?
No.
It's you know who Alistair Campbell is?
Yes, and I know the book, yeah. And it's a bit like Money for You. It's on my shelf, but I haven't read it yet.
Okay, no, don't worry, I'm definitely going to read it. I've read snippets of it, and I like where you quoted Plato. It's really good. Winners. It's a really good book where he's gone and interviewed all these kind of guys that have a winning mindset. So it would have been people like Angela Merkel, Maradona, all these guys. But the one that stood out the most for me was Floyd Mayweather. And
wow.
There's this one thing that he said to him in the book, and that was Alistair Campbell goes to Floyd. He goes, so what goes through your mind before a fight? Like, do you ever think about losing and what's going to happen if I lose this fight? And he's like, he just looks at me in the most bizarre way, like I've offended his mum or something like that, right? And he replies with, why would anybody ever do that? Like, why would you ever waste any of your energy in thinking about losing when I can dedicate all that energy in just focusing on how I'm going to win this fight? And he was just like, I never, ever think about losing. It's just quite cool. What was he like as a person?
Difficult to interview.
Really?
If you asked him questions he likes, all chummy. As soon as you ask him a question he doesn't like, it's all defensive. And
really? Like, give us an example.
I can't remember. Yeah. Like a specific question. You have to watch the interviews. These were a few years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, he got quite arsey with me a couple of times.
I can imagine.
Yeah, just like Chris Eubank, he was awkward.
I've seen that one.
To interview. That was the most awkward. Paris Fury, John Fury recently, Robert Kiyosaki recently, will.i.am recently.
Wow.
These are some massive names. How do you come across these people?
Stalking.
Wow.
Yeah, generally just.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Persistence.
Yeah.
Is that great?
Yeah, because you thought I paid them.
Yeah.
Didn't.
I mean, I
have paid a guest, but virtually all those names I said didn't pay. We just we try and hunt them down. We try and figure out a bit about them that might connect with the show. Try and approach them in a slightly different way. I'll tell you something that really works. Handwritten letters. Handwrite letters to some of them.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, who receives a handwritten letter in the post now?
You don't really get
You don't.
However, there is an AI company that has now started send it. So if you want a handwritten letter sent out, you can send them what your handwriting normally looks like, and then you submit that, and now it looks like.
Harry, you should get on that.
Yeah.
No, but the AI that can write like,
it'll write like you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously AI is much more advanced than just handwriting, but yeah.
But we get
that's such a good idea.
Yeah, we buy the blue Smythson paper.
Okay.
You know, and you handwrite the address and you handwrite the letter. That's got a very high success rate.
Wow.
It's difficult to scale, obviously. But we've got a few good guests
That
that
is
way.
just so surprising. I would have thought like thousands, tens of thousands to get somebody, you know, as high profile as, I mean, now Will.i.am, but even back then Floyd Mayweather. You know, surely these guys are so demanding. They don't want to do anything unless.
I mean, these people are probably so hard to get a hold of. How would you get their addresses to write to, or are you just contacting their management teams?
My assistant has his ways.
Oh, that's cool.
Probably taught by Mark to hunt down addresses. Yeah. And then sometimes there's like the business address, and then you send a letter to all the addresses. Yeah. You could also try doing it where they have to sign for it.
Ah, got it. That is definitely where there is a will, there's a way. You know, I'm going to get this guy on. I don't give a crap. Whichever way possible.
Yeah, I mean, we go back to them every 3 months when they say no. Yeah. By the way, if they reply, it's much better than no reply. So a no that you get in reply can often be a yes in 6 to 12 months. And also, when they initially replied, they might not be on a tour. You know, they're not promoting anything. They're much easier to get when they're promoting something, because obviously they've got a reason to do it. But also the first approach, they may not know you, but the second approach, they do. And, you know, we were talking about virality and some things to go viral. And sometimes you do things that make you go viral that you don't think are that classy, but you popping up on feeds of people that have never seen you before. And if they've seen you before, even if it's on a TikTok, you're not new to them. So you've got more chance of getting in. And also, I'll say this with humility, but I have got a big podcast. Yeah, so that is a door opener. Yeah. It didn't used to be, but it is now.
Yeah, they almost could do with having you as much as you could do with
them. Yeah, because they get the promotion. Yeah. They get
millions of views.
Do on TikToks as well. So
was there a moment during your podcast career where you thought, okay, do you know what? I've made it now. This is now officially a very successful podcast, and I can get any guest in the world on this.
I don't think like that as a human. I'm not very good at celebrating. I'm not very good at patting myself on the back. And no matter what I do that might be deemed as very good or credible to others, I'm always looking forward. So I just don't ever have that experience, which in a way makes me a bit sad to say that. But I never think that. No matter who I get, I'll just always think there could be more. But I think that's a trait in a lot of entrepreneurs that I know. And also with us, the 2 or 3 times that we're like, bang, we've made this, within an hour, we got shadow banned. Oh no! So we got who was that? We first off we got David Icke, and you know, he was our first proper controversial guest, and it was a bit of a should we, shouldn't we?
Do you know who he is? No. David Icke. He's this like conspiracy theorist that believed the Queen was a lizard.
Yeah, I didn't ask him that one on my show, but maybe I should have done.
But no, then he had other things that kind of vaguely became correct. So he prophesized that, you know, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to say anything in particular. I might get shadow banned ourselves, but yeah.
So he was our first hugely controversial guest. And we blew up, millions of views, instant ban. Damn. It went 1.5 million views, ban.
On YouTube?
On YouTube. So it was like, great, we've just earned 30 grand. Oh, and it shut. I think Harry told me them at the same time. Oh, it's blown viral, been our biggest video, and it's been banned.
So when it gets banned, do you still have access to those that 30 grand? Or is that's
yeah, we do, don't we? Do we still have access to the money when... Oh, really? You never told me that. Okay. Most of it, yeah. Yeah. So I got Andrew Tate at probably the best time.
Wow. Was it before or after?
And then got demonetised. Same thing.
Before. He got the ban or after?
Before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then they took that down when he got the ban.
Yeah. So David Icke and Andrew Tate aren't well, Andrew Tate probably was the most famous person in the world when I got him, but they're not necessarily the two most famous people in the world conventionally. But yeah, when you're used to getting, say, a few 100,000 views in total and you get 1.5 million views in 2 days, you're like, wow. But and by the way, now, with no disrespect to all the people starting up now, but, you know, a 2 to 3 million video view in 2018 is like 100 million one now.
Wow.
You know, I know a lot of people who start quite soon and get millions of views, but it's easier now to get that quick.
In terms of the monetization aspect?
In terms of the virality aspect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned the whole monetary aspect of videos. I mean, I'm assuming your podcast is quite a good stream of revenue.
Yeah, but I pump it all back into growing the brand. So it's to say it's a hobby would be disrespectful to what I do. It's not a hobby because obviously I've been doing it 8 years. It's made me a lot of money. It's made me millions of pounds. It's the best thing for my brand. Like, you know, I built the biggest property training company, and once every 10 times I'd go out on the street, someone would recognize me. Within 6 to 12 months of doing my podcast, once a day, someone would recognize me. And now it's 3 or 4 times every time I go out, you know, I get recognized. But I've never done it full time. Never done this full time. Full time is the training business. This, you know, podcasting thing really is just sort of part time.
What's the most you would have earned from a YouTube podcast?
And the most we earned from one video was £37,000.
How long did that take?
Was it the video or was that the month, Harry? I think it was the month of Andrew Tate. So it might not have been just his video it was in that month, but that was 90% of that was his video.
That's monetizing.
That's just
videos.
YouTube. That's not TikTok monetization. That's not all the people who did our courses.
Wow.
Because, by the way, that would have been significantly more. Like that one video like that can make me easily 6 figures if you look at the people. You know, a bit like, let's say you monetize TikTok, but they buy a car.
Yeah.
What do you want? Do you want the TikTok money or do you want the car purchase?
You want the business, yeah.
Exactly, you want the car purchase. I've only ever done social media for the business, like you would for the car purchase.
Yeah.
The monetization is just the bonus.
Yes.
But what I do with the monetization, so the last few months I've made decent money, tens of thousands on TikTok and Facebook. It just all goes back into
the pot.
Yeah. The brand. Yeah.
Just really quickly going back to the property side of things. We're in a funny market at the moment, and a lot of our customer and client base are all in the property game. What do you recommend to people out there who are looking to sort of get into the property game? Is now a market where you should be buying cheap and selling straight away, or would you recommend for them to buy and then rent and then sell at a later stage?
Yeah.
What is hot at the moment?
So I don't sell. And there's a few reasons.
Has that always been the case? Right from day
I've
dot?
sold some.
Yeah.
You know, I told you I sold a few in my first and second year.
Yeah.
But that was just because I was selling to other people to learn the business of selling property. But, you know, those properties that I was buying for 45 and 70 and 100 are now worth 200 or more. We have one property that's worth, I think, 22, 23 million. And by the way, if that was in central London, it'd be 250 million. It's 159 tenants, 99 apartments. These properties that I own now were half the price 10, 12 years ago. So imagine if I'd have sold them, maybe cashed in a bit, paid the tax, divided it by 2 with my business partner. So if tax is 25 to 40, and then I'm splitting with my business partner, you know, there's not a lot left. But also when you sell, you don't get the rental income, and I want the income. The other thing is, if you buy and sell straight away, you probably won't make a profit. Like if I buy a car from you there today and try and sell it tomorrow, I'm probably not going to make a profit. I need to wait for it to appreciate. And that's what you need to do with property. So my strategy for investing is buy, hold, die. And that's how I play the game. I'm not a trader. I know what I'm not. I'm not a researcher. I'm not an analyst. I'm not a trader. I'm not a speculator. I'm pretty good. I'm good at buying. So as long as I make the decision to buy the right thing, then I keep it. And that's what we teach.
That's a lot of money to put in to buy an apartment block with 99 apartments.
Yeah, well, we paid 3.8 million for that. And my half went in from my profit from the training business. So you could argue it was no money down.
There you go.
And that is now worth 25.
Bit less. I think I said 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But have you broken even with the rental income yet?
Make 1.2 million a year in rent on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Then
Yeah.
you guys should be buying some cars downstairs. I don't think we should let them go until they buy some cars. No?
I told you where I spent all my money, but I didn't know you before then. And I'm not going to say it on your podcast because that'd be disrespectful.
Don't know who you're talking about.
You know Mark's looking for one. So if you can find him that at the right money, he'll get that.
Yeah, we'll.
What's he looking for?
Twist his arm.
Turbo S.
992.
Yeah.
Okay.
992, that's the latest model, is it?
Yeah.
It's the latest model.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, Turbo S.
Cab. He wanted a cab, didn't he?
Is that convertible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something to do when he walks back into the room.
So you mentioned Tony Robbins. Who's somebody that's inspired you, like somebody that you've looked up to in order to get to where you've got to right now, whether it be in the podcasting space or seminar space or property? Is there anybody in particular that you can turn around and say, this is the guy that was the reason why I'm doing what I do today?
No, I would say my dad, because I saw him hustle and be an entrepreneur and make $1 million, lose $1 million, dust himself off the same day and make $1 million and lose $1 million and dust himself off. And, I saw an amazing resilience in him. And I also saw all the upside of him being his own boss. And I wanted that. And I was inspired to buy cars because he would go and buy cars. Tony Robbins, the Get the Edge CD set was the first anything I listened to that taught you that you could better your life. Before that, weeks before that, I didn't even know there was such a thing that you could better your life. I just thought you are what you are and you're born how you're born, and I'm just unlucky that I'm born not rich. And then when I realised you can learn it, I thought it was American claptrap, high P BS. And then I listened to these CDs and I didn't like it at first, but within the first CD, I was hooked. So definitely should hat tip to Tony Robbins, because in terms of my mindset, but Tony Robbins isn't a property guy. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first book I read in property. And of course I interviewed Robert just recently. So I'd have to hat tip to Robert. They weren't my mentors, but they were the catalyst. They were the spark plugs, that got me going. The guy who I think is infinitely wise is a guy that is not so well known called John DeMartini. When I was broke, I used to think everything was. Then when I went to Tony Robbins, I used to think everything was good. And in reality, nothing is all good or all. Everything is neutral. And it's you or I that project on it whether it's good or bad. I asked you to rate Lambo, Ferrari, Porsche, and one person says Porsche because it's so well engineered and easy to get in and maintain and repair. But you're like, a Porsche is not a supercar, it's a sports car. Because you were looking at it from different vantage points. Yeah. So you can see the upside of a Porsche or the downside of a Porsche, the upside of a Lambo, the downside of a Lambo. And if you look at anything in your life, it's the same. The same. There is even the things that happen to you that are the hardest in your life. Maybe you learned the most from your most difficult client. At the time you're like, why is this client being, so difficult? But then afterwards you're like, well, wait a minute. I actually learned something about how to handle a difficult client. So for me, that was a game changer, because I'd either been all negative or all positive. So I would recommend anyone who is a little bit emotional or erratic, check out John DeMartini.
Wow. Do you remember the name of the book?
He's written loads of books.
Okay, fine. No,
more than me. I've written 19 and he's written a lot more than that.
You've written 19 books. That is really inspirational, man. That is amazing. I think on the Tony Robbins front, I think one of my first ever self-help books that I read was Unleash the Power Within. That was a similar kind of concept, what you mentioned, that I never had come across a self-help book before, and then I read that, and it's pretty powerful, especially if you've never read anything before in the past. Yeah,
I mean, I remember being like, self-help, that's for losers, you know, really like scathing and skeptical of it. And of course, I now see it completely the other way round. Like, why would anyone not want to help themselves?
Yeah, and he takes a more... It's a more of a scientific approach to it as well with Tony Robbins, right? So it's the whole NLP kind of reprogramming your brain, that if you are thinking negatively, well, how can you switch your brain and your regular habits to start thinking more positively, right? But,
so it's interesting because you just mentioned that you can learn from pretty much anything you experience, you will learn from that. Everything seems to have gone so well in your career so far, and touch wood, I hope that continues to do so. But surely along the route, there's been some ups and downs. Have you had any downs?
Yeah.
In the property game?
Yeah.
Any examples?
Yeah. COVID.
Really? Okay. How did that affect you?
That was... that was when you lose the back end of the car and you think it's gone, and somehow miraculously you pull it back. That was we run an education business, which at the time had 107 staff. And then the government say, it is illegal to run your business. Well, I've never been there before. I don't know what to do. So that was scary. We had this 20 plus million development that I told you about with a crane. I don't know. Was it 1,000 a day, that crane?
Oh my God.
I mean, it weren't cheap, was it?
Yeah, it was costing me 22 grand a month.
Oh my days.
There you go. So, 800 a day or whatever for the crane. And, if we had to shut that building site down, we stood to lose.
Development finance is 60 grand a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we stood to lose millions. Thankfully, I mean, they made a lot of mistakes, I think, in government, but they didn't shut building sites down. So we managed to keep that going. And yeah, that was hard. But, I said every downside has an upside. Well, now that I've been through that, I don't, probably only an earthquake with all my staff falling down the hole would be worse, or would be something that I probably couldn't handle anymore. But yeah, that was like make or break for us. Like at one point we were like, are we going to get through this? So we've had months where there's £1 million a month on the overhead. So, it's not easy just to cull that down. And we did. Yeah. We did cull it down, but sometimes it doesn't happen quick enough. I mean, Mark just stopped all the direct debits, locked up all the invoices. You do what you've got to do, don't you, to survive. I'm like, they're drastically selling. How can we get everything online? And it's all very well saying, oh, yeah, we'll just do your courses online. But you have to rewrite all the courses, and you have to get all the trainers in. And the trainers have to re-record them all. And these would normally take 9 months. And we were getting them done in a week. Wow. Because we had to. So yeah, that was
create
hard.
A separate side to the business then, surely, because now you're forced into doing online. You probably created your online side, or not?
Well, yes and no. So actually, as it turns out, the post-COVID year was quite profitable for us. The revenue was way down, the sales were way down, but it was quite profitable because obviously we'd slashed all our overhead. But I knew long term it wasn't going to be sustainable, because I knew as soon as people can go out, they want to go out. And I know, if you've read Tony Robbins' book versus been to his seminar, it's a whole different experience. And I knew that about humans. I've been doing events 17 years. Everyone shut their events business. This is another upside that came out of it. We had loads of competition. Loads of people had copied us. Loads of our trainers had left and set up, in competition. And then all of a sudden, this lockdown wiped them all out. So I said to Mark, as soon as we can get back to doing live events, let's do them, because everyone's gone. And I don't think everyone in the end will want to stay on Zoom. I was proven to be right. People still do Zooms, but people disengage on Zoom. They're up and down and walking. They're not concentrating. They're not there. And I told you we did 288,000 at this this event, which is not our biggest one, but it's a good one post-COVID.
Wow.
So yeah, it ended up being good for us. So doing the online events got us through a tough time. But actually, we are an experiential events business where, this wouldn't have been the same if we were doing it on Zoom.
Yeah.
No way.
Completely different.
I mean, I saw your interview with one of the Paul brothers.
It's not the same on Zoom.
Zoom
it was way more easy for him to be an awkward bastard, which he was, on Zoom. It's harder to be an awkward bastard when you're face to face.
Yeah.
And you can get more rapport.
Yeah. I mean, actually, that takes us to one of the questions that we got, which is who has been your worst guest and your best guest?
Well, I suppose technically it's the same person, Chris Eubank.
Oh, wow.
Because from that was awkward, he was a nightmare perspective, it was the worst interview. But it's the one everyone remembers. So I actually see it as the best interview. The worst interviews are the ones we haven't published, which were so bad we didn't even publish them.
Way.
And I'm not going to name and shame them; they were that bad.
Oh my!
But yeah, I've had a handful.
What happened? Even if you're not naming the person, what happened?
We had this coach to all these famous comedians,
okay,
who wasn't funny, and anytime I asked her anything, she basically said, "Well, you have to pay me for that," and didn't give us any content whatsoever. Oh, I remember a classic book in the entrepreneur space is The E-Myth.
Okay.
It is the classic go-to book for working on, not in your business. So if you're an entrepreneur, you know this book. It's like Rich Dad, Poor Dad in Property. And so I interviewed the author, and this was like in my 20th podcast. So I was like, holy shit, I'm interviewing the Don of business on my 20th podcast. And same thing. Gave me no answers. Just said, well, you got to pay for that. No answers. Was just closed, awkward. So that was poor. I think that was the only one where we managed to, I think, rescue 16 minutes out of that. And it was an hour podcast because I don't normally edit them down. I like all the nuance to be in. Yeah, exactly. For them to be conversational. But now I would probably have to say, I mean, I got Maisie Williams, who was in the finale of Game of Thrones. She had the biggest role, and she was Arya Stark in Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And I got her at the time.
Yeah.
So she was bigger than God then.
Wow.
Just like when I got Andrew Tate, he was bigger than God when I got him. So I'd have to say a best guest is when I get them at the right time.
Okay.
Because I've also had famous people, but maybe not at the right time.
Was she good?
She is brilliant.
Really?
Yeah.
She played a good character.
Yeah.
How did that podcast work though? Because I think you target entrepreneurs, right?
Well, I started with the podcast being called Disruptive Entrepreneur, and now it's just called Disruptors. And I escaped out of my own shackles and also went with the trends of the world. You know, I said to David over lunch, if I had my way, David and I would have just talked business with you guys for an hour and a half. But, you know, I'm asking questions which I'm hoping we can cut for a TikTok and go viral, and maybe they're a little bit more sensational or not really very business focused. So I'm doing that because I think that's where the world is going, and I want to stay relevant, and hopefully they see me and then they read money and then they get into property. But, you know, I'm 44 and it's not as easy anymore to know what the 25 or the 23 or even the 31-year-olds want. You know, I knew that when I was 31. So I'm trying to stay on the pulse.
I think, you know, obviously with the kind of products that we sell, they're very aspirational, right? So you've got a whole bunch of kids, you know, especially young boys, especially through their teens, that they're looking up at these cars. They have these posters up in their bedrooms. This is what they're wanting in life, right? And so then actually that's a lot of our viewers as well that watch this. So what advice would you give to those kids that are watching this, that have the aspirations of owning these cars, like, but want to do it via going into business? What would, given all that you've been through, which is a lot of really amazing stuff, what advice would you give to them?
Well, it's easier than it's ever been to start your own business, or as the Americans call it, a side hustle. When we started, it was more technical, more complicated. There was no such thing as social media, so all your lead generation was paid, or you had to go to physical networking events. Also, if you were a bit young, you'd get looked at. Does this guy really know what he's doing in business? But now, you know, you're getting crypto billionaires in their late teens, early 20s, and TikTokers are going viral. There's that little kid who does the cars, isn't it? I forget his name, but he's freaking 12. So I would say to anyone, start now. Go online, register your domain name, go and buy your company name. I think it'll cost you 30 quid, something like that. Get your domain name, get your company name, then go and get all the social media handles on that name, and think about, what do you know that others don't, but they want to know?
Yeah.
You know cars, what do they know? And then start doing content on it. And before you know it, you can turn monetization on TikTok on and monetization on YouTube on, or you can start your own membership site. I have a membership site called rob.team, totaling almost 10,000 members since we started. So that membership site, it brought in 205,000 in its best month.
Oh my God.
Front and back
what
end.
Is this?
It's £8 a month on starting and scaling a business and making and managing and multiplying money.
Generic business or property business?
No, any business.
Oh, wow.
I teach starting your own membership site, doing content, e-commerce. So the easiest business to be in right now is information, because you don't the success that you've had may be something to do with the fact that you do consignment, sale or return. I mean, obviously you're successful for many other reasons, but you've dramatically reduced your risk because you've got no stock overhead if you do a sale or return. Information is the same kind of business model. There is no, you don't have to buy the product, you don't have to store it, it doesn't decay, you don't have to sell it cheap. So what would stop people? Well, I don't know how to set up a business. Well, I've just said buy the domain name and go on Company's House and get the company. So that's ticked. Oh, well, I don't know anything. Yeah, you do. Everyone knows something that others don't, even if it's chess or wellness or spirituality or whatever.
Everybody's passionate about something.
Everybody knows something that other people don't. And you can create multiple streams of income with content. TikTok, YouTube, Facebook Lives, courses, masterminds, mentoring, books, podcasts, getting sponsors for podcasts. And that's what we built. So we started in property. Then we did the books and the property training, but now we have this separate brand, this Disruptors and my Rob Moore brand. And you know, that's quite a big asset in its own right, and anyone can do that.
That's great. That's great advice. Thank you.
So we're in quite a funny market at the moment. How would you describe the property market at the moment, and what advice would you give to any aspiring property investor out there?
Right now, I would use one word to describe the property market, and that would be opportunity. I remember reading James Caan. He actually mentored us in the start of our business journey, and I read from Dragon's Den. And he quoted Walt Disney, I think it was, observe the masses, do the opposite. So anyone out there in this business park or on the high street will tell you it's a bad time to buy because the market's falling. But you just said to me it's a great time to be in cars because the market has fallen. So actually, observe the masses, do the opposite. Right now is possibly the best time since the last crash of 2008 to get into property because properties are cheaper. In some areas, they've dropped already. In other areas, they're ready to drop. And then people say to me, well, Rob, in that case, I'll just wait till they drop. Well, how do you know when the bottom is? By the time you know when the bottom is, it's too late. Because so you have to start now, because it might take you 2 or 3 months to learn. Let's say you read my property books and come on some of my property seminars. That might take you 2 or 3 months. Then you're going to go and view houses. That might take you another couple of months to build a relationship with an agent. Then you might start putting in some offers. It might take you another month or 2 to get a deal agreed. Then it's going to take you 3 or 4 months to buy the property. So even if you start today, it could be 6, 9 months before you bag your first deal. By then, there's a good chance we'd have had a bit of a correction. And I'm a bit more bearish than my business partner. I think it'll come down. I think it'll come down harder than 20%.
Oh, really?
I do, yeah. It's more intuition than loads of data. But main thing I think is just how screwed the country is and how much money they've wasted and the trillions of pounds pumped into nonsense. And also how high the property market got and how COVID almost, because of the undersupply of properties, sort of bucked the trend and made it go up even more. So I think it could be 2024 could be the best year to buy since 2009. And our best years were 2009 and 2010. So 24 and 2025 could be that again. Obviously, I'm not an oracle, haven't got a crystal ball. I'm just telling you what I think. But don't wait to buy property and wait.
Okay, Rob, so we're coming to the end of the podcast. Where should our viewers follow you?
Well, if you search for my name, Rob Moore, you'll find me on Amazon, and my podcast is called Disruptors. You'll find all my social media, Rob Moore. I think the one place, though, like the central hub of which then you can decide where you want to go, is rob.team.
Okay.
You just literally write rob.team. So if you want to start a business, if you want to scale a business, if you want to manage and multiply money, there's hundreds of hours of courses, resources, masterclasses, 22 pence a day, that is.
Wow.
Cancel any time.
No brainer.
No contract either.
And that has the details of all your seminars as well, right?
Yeah, you can through there you can find everything we've ever done in business. Yeah.
So cool. Well, I look forward to doing some more content with you, because I think you're going to bring some cars down here at some point.
That's the plan.
That should be fun.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming on today's podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, George. Thanks, David.
Brilliant.
Thanks for having me.